Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. There's no denying the Miami Dolphins have a pressing need at cornerback. And with training camp looming, fans are desperate for reinforcements. The latest buzz surrounds veteran cornerback Rasul Douglas, who remains a free agent and is reportedly in active talks with the Dolphins. According to Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald, the potential addition of Douglas has stirred a mix of optimism and skepticism among fans and analysts alike. Douglas started 15 games for the Buffalo Bills last season, registering 43 tackles, 5 pass breakups, and 1 forced fumble. Respectable numbers, no doubt. At 29 years old, with his 30th birthday just around the corner on August 29th, he still has a bit of mileage left in the tank, but is that enough to consider him a true solution? The Dolphins' cornerback room is thin, unstable, and in desperate need of veteran presence. Douglas may be the best available option right now, but whether he's the right option is a far more complicated question. Looking strictly at last season's performance, Douglas is a bit of a paradox. Statistically, 2020 was one of his worst years in recent memory. He failed to record an interception for the first time since 2020 and allowed a quarterback passer rating of 116.9 when targeted, by far the highest of his career. He also committed a career-worst 10 penalties, a glaring indicator of someone trying to compensate for a decline in speed or positioning. Despite these numbers, the tape tells a slightly different story. While Douglas did show signs of slowing down, he still possesses the instincts and football IQ that made him a starter in Buffalo and before that in Green Bay. He remains a zone coverage specialist, which fits defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver's scheme in Miami, but when asked to play man-to-man, Douglas often looked overmatched. That should raise some eyebrows, especially in a league where hybrid responsibilities are becoming the norm. The Dolphins currently have Kader Kohou as their only consistently reliable cornerback. Everyone else on the depth chart either lacks NFL experience or comes with a history of being a liability elsewhere. That's where Douglas becomes attractive. He'd come in as an immediate starter, offering some stability in a room full of uncertainty that alone makes the idea of signing him appealing. Yet, when evaluating potential signings, teams must ask themselves whether they are buying a player's past or investing in their future. In Douglas' case, there's a compelling argument that he's already peaked. His success in past seasons was often predicated on his ability to bait quarterbacks and then close quickly on the ball. Last year, those closing bursts weren't as explosive. He wasn't fooling quarterbacks the way he used to. If Douglas has truly lost a step, then bringing him in might be less of a solution and more of a stopgap. It's also worth noting that Douglas' former team, the Buffalo Bills, considered him such a liability by season's end that they made cornerback a priority. In the 2025 NFL Draft, they selected Maxwell Hairston in the first round to replace him, sending a pretty clear message. They didn't believe Douglas could rebound. That context matters. If Buffalo, a team familiar with Douglas' strengths and weaknesses, was willing to move on so quickly and decisively, what does that say about his trajectory? Maybe Douglas was just a scapegoat for a larger, systemic issue in Buffalo's secondary, or maybe, just maybe, the tape is an accurate reflection of a player on the brink of decline. Either way, Miami has to weigh these factors carefully. Bringing in Douglas could stabilize the cornerback unit temporarily, but it might also hinder the development of younger players fighting for snaps. To be fair, not everything about Douglas' 2020 campaign was a disaster. He showed flashes of his old self, particularly when operating in his comfort zone coverage. He still reads the quarterback's eyes well, anticipates routes, and occasionally jumps throws with confidence. What's changed is how often he's successful doing so. The instincts are still there, but the body may not be keeping up as well. Age is unforgiving in the NFL, especially for cornerbacks. Once speed and explosiveness begin to fade, recovery becomes a nightmare, and mental sharpness alone isn't enough to cover for physical shortcomings. This is why most cornerbacks tend to hit their decline around age 30, and with Douglas turning that corner before the season starts, the warning signs are hard to ignore. He could have another decent season in him, but betting on that seems more hopeful than strategic. One thing that could work in Douglas' favor is Miami's defensive structure. Unlike Buffalo, Miami has a rising star in the secondary and safety, Minkah Fitzpatrick. That kind of presence on the back end could make life easier for Douglas, covering some of his mistakes and allowing him to play more aggressively in coverage. Additionally, if Christian Benford was to shut down corner in Buffalo and quarterbacks picked on Douglas. The reverse might happen in Miami, with so many young, unproven players in the secondary. Opposing offenses might test them first. That could give Douglas a more favorable set of matchups, of course. This assumes that Douglas will take advantage of those matchups and not become the weak link again. It's possible Miami's environment helps him recapture some of his old form, but it's far from guaranteed. Then there's the broader organizational dilemma. On paper, the Dolphins are built to win now. After a 2024 season filled with heartbreak and underperformance, the front office and coaching staff should be operating with a win-at-all-cost mentality. Yet, the team's off-season strategy suggests otherwise. Instead of aggressively pursuing top-tier veterans or making big splashes in free agency and the draft, they took a conservative, future-facing approach. That strategy leaves them in a strange middle ground to talent to tank, but not aggressive enough to contend seriously. Signing Douglas feels like a move that aligns with this cautious philosophy. Low risk, moderate reward, but in a season where jobs may be on the line, is moderation enough? That's the dilemma Miami must solve before pulling the trigger on a deal like this. Even comparing Douglas to younger players like Storm Duck presents a gray area. Duck, while far from polished, allowed a 100-point-to-passer rating in 2024, a better number than Douglas despite his rookie status. That stat, taken alone, can be misleading, but it opens the door to a real debate. Is Douglas still clearly better than the younger, cheaper options? Or are the Dolphins merely clinging to the idea of veteran leadership because they fear the unknown? Duck may not be ready to start full-time, but every snap Douglas takes is one less opportunity for Duck or others like him to develop. That trade-off matters, especially if Douglas only provides marginal improvement. The Dolphins must decide if they want to invest in the short term or build for the long haul. With Douglas, they might be trying to do both, and that rarely works. Out in the NFL, let's be clear, bringing in Rasul Douglas would not be a disaster. In fact, given the current state of Miami's cornerback room, it might be a necessary move. He brings experience, leadership, and familiarity with zone schemes that could be beneficial for a young defense trying to find its identity. But let's not kid ourselves, Douglas is not the savior of this secondary. He's not going to suddenly transform this group into a top-tier unit. At best, he can serve as a bridge, a temporary solution while the team figures out its long-term plans. The concern is that by giving him too large a role, the Dolphins could hinder the development of players who might be more important down the road. That's a tough balance to strike, and it's one Miami has struggled with repeatedly over the past few seasons. The decision to sign Douglas must come with clear expectations. In the end, the answer isn't simple. Douglas makes sense for the Dolphins on paper. He fills a need, fits the scheme, and has the pedigree to justify a one-year deal, but signing him doesn't come without consequences. It's not just about upgrading a weak position, it's about how that upgrade affects the team's development, chemistry, and long-term strategy. Miami has to be brutally honest with itself. Are they trying to win now, or are they playing for the future? Douglas exists in the narrow space between those two timelines. If the Dolphins view him as a short-term patch while grooming their younger corners, then the move makes sense. But if they're expecting him to stabilize the position long-term or perform at his 2022 level, they may be setting themselves up for disappointment. Either way, this decision will say a lot about where Miami thinks it stands and where it wants to go. Still with us? Then show some love. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments, what's your take on the Fins this week? There's a buzz stirring in Miami, and it's the kind of buzz that has fans leaning in, eyes wide, waiting for what might come next. Rumors swirling around Hard Rock Stadium suggest that the Miami Dolphins may have landed a game changer on the offensive line. Yes, we're talking about JONAH SAVAIINAEA, the mammoth offensive tackle out of Arizona, who reportedly has inked a deal with the Dolphins. Nothing's been officially confirmed by the team just yet, but word on the street is that this isn't just a signing, it's a statement. The kind of move that says, we're serious about protecting TUA. And not just protecting him, shielding him with someone who has the mentality of a warrior. Someone who walks onto that field with bad intentions. For anyone trying to lay a finger on his quarterback, whispers from team insiders hint at one key phrase being tossed around the locker room: blood in his eyes. If there's truth behind this rumor, Dolphins fans might be witnessing the beginning of a new era for their offensive line. SAVAIINAEA isn't your average lineman. We're talking about a 6'5", 330-pound wall with feet like a dancer in the grip of a bear trap. Coaches at Arizona used to say he didn't block defenders, he erased them, and now, if reports are to be believed, he's bringing that same nasty streak to South Beach. Sources close to the team suggest that he's already told people around him, "Tua is my guy now. I'll go to war for him." That's the kind of energy Miami's been starving for in the trenches. And let's be honest, with all the hits Tua's taken over the years, this could be the piece that finally lets him breathe in the pocket, maybe even dance a little. Of course, the real intrigue lies in how this signing allegedly came together. Some insiders say the Dolphins have been eyeing Jonah for months, maybe even longer, while the big media outlets were distracted by flashy wideouts and speedy corners. Miami's front office was quietly scouting the meanest offensive linemen they could find. Word is, offensive line coach Butch Barry flew out privately to meet with Jonah and his family not once, but twice, laying out the vision for what he could become in Aqua and Orange. And according to whispers from a source close to the player, it wasn't the money that sealed the deal. It was the promise, a shot to protect one of the most scrutinized quarterbacks in the NFL and help bring a championship back to South Florida. Those close to Jonah say he's been itching for this moment. At Arizona, he was dominant, but always felt overlooked, buried under West Coast time zones and late-night kickoff slots. Despite being a cornerstone of that offensive line, he never got the national attention some felt he deserved. That chip on his shoulder, it's grown, and now, according to those in his inner circle, he's ready to unleash it on the NFL. Jonah's got a mean streak, said one former teammate. He doesn't talk a lot, but when it's game time, he flips a switch. It's scary. And if you're Tua Tagovailoa, that's exactly what you want. Someone with no fear, no doubt, and a singular mission to keep one upright, breathing, and dangerous. Some fans are already imagining the possibilities, with weapons like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle flying downfield. The only thing that's held Miami back has been consistency in the trenches. If SAVAIINAEA is everything they say he is, then this offensive unit could go from explosive to downright terrifying. Rumor has it that even some veterans on the team have already reached out to Jonah, welcoming him like he's the missing puzzle piece. There's even talk that Tua himself made the call, something rarely done, to personally ask Jonah to come protect him. Whether that happened or not remains unconfirmed, but it speaks volumes to the energy around this move. It's not just about blocking, it's about belief, it's about building something real in Miami. But not everyone's convinced just yet. Some skeptics point out that Jonah is still untested at the pro level. College dominance doesn't always translate into NFL stardom. They caution that the Dolphins have gambled on linemen before, with mixed results. Yet, those close to the situation insist this is different. Jonah reportedly trains like a madman and studies tape like a quarterback. He's not just big and strong, he's smart, detail-oriented, and according to one scout, has the mind of a vet in a rookie body. That combination is rare. And if he can adjust to the speed of the NFL quickly, this rumor might just become one of the most important signings in recent team history. Interestingly, there's also some speculation about what this means for the rest of the offensive line. Will current starters be shuffled? Is this a sign that the front office is losing faith in some of the veterans? Some think this move is more than just about depth, it's about changing the culture. SAVAIINAEA's name reportedly came up in team meetings as someone who sets the tone in the first snap. That kind of attitude can be infectious. And if he really has blood in his eyes like some say, then expect training camp to be a battlefield, and not everyone may survive the reshuffling. That, in itself, is sending shockwaves through the locker room. Even more intriguing is the cultural fit. Jonah, born and raised in Hawaii, shares a Polynesian heritage with Tua, and sources say that shared background has created an immediate bond between the two. In fact, one insider described their first meeting as brothers from the same root. It's rare to find that kind of connection in professional sports, but when it happens, it can fuel something deeper than just X and O's. They say Jonah sees Tua not just as a quarterback, but as family, someone whose health and safety he'll fight for like blood. That kind of passion, that kind of brotherhood can't be taught. It's either there or it's not, and if it really is there, Miami's got a whole new kind of weapon. Social media, of course, is already buzzing. Fans have been dissecting every clue, every whisper, every cryptic emoji Jonah's posted since the news started swirling. Some are convinced it's already a done deal. Even if the official announcement hasn't hit, others are cautiously optimistic. waiting for that push notification from the Dolphins official account. Regardless of where you land, one thing's certain. There's a different kind of electricity in the air, whether it's a rumor or not. It's the kind of story that makes you believe something special might be brewing in Miami, and if the whispers turn out to be true, don't be surprised if JONAH SAVAIINAEA becomes a household name by mid-season. A name whispered by defenders after he pancakes them into the turf. In the end, whether this move is confirmed tomorrow or never, the idea alone has already reignited a spark among Dolphins fans. There's a hope now, not just in TUA, not just in the offense, but in the trenches. Where games are won or lost, JONAH SAVAIINAEA might still be a rumor. But the message behind it is loud and clear. The Dolphins aren't playing around. They're done watching their quarterback take hit after hit. They're ready to fight back. And if this Hawaiian warrior really is on his way to Miami, then defenses across the league better brace themselves. Because sometimes, a single man with fire in his heart and blood in his eyes is all it takes to change everything. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up!